Often, I consider triggers as unwelcome opportunities. And tonight I had an unwelcome opportunity to remember that during this time of year, I've experienced a lot of circumstances where myself and others weren't safe, others I cared about. Generally, this will be what hits the the hardest. So you might be able to tell I've had some tearfulness, which is very rare for me. And I'm recently in a spirit of suffering, remembering the suffering that I couldn't control. As we consider what people mean to us, and how bad watching them be hurt hurts us, we'll quickly realize that there are few experiences of the human experience that are as painful throughout the system as violence against our loved ones, our mother, siblings, is often a whole body experience during flashbacks, pulling us in. When we consider the unwelcome opportunity this offers, it is an opportunity to reflect on the safety of now and what is in our control, as well as what's in the control of the people we love. Different factors of safety in their lives that we can acknowledge now give us an opportunity to reflect upon how our felt safety is our responsibility, and how there's interdependence, how our increasing our capacity for executing safety, keeping things safe, how that impacts our surroundings. For instance, there's few people, few and far between, that have grown up around me and not learned how to defend themselves. And that came first from the work I did for myself. And so we want to kind of look for lighthouses in this situation, friends that, family, any family, right? Anyone really that we care about and they have a capacity to defend themselves. But we need to be making sure that as we dwell upon these friendships, that we don't isolate ourselves from people who are unable or unwilling to engage in the necessary development of the capacity to defend themselves. And so when I recall this is less in basic components and more a little bit nuanced and individual setting. In a way, I am fortunate to have seen and in all before 18 experiences, well, not most of those experiences, I was unable to do anything to protect the people that were being hurt in the various ways that our species inflicts pain on each other. And so, as I think of instances where I can trace back by my timeline and by chronologically ordering my life experiences, I can trace back that during this time of year, there was a lot of chaos while I was in the womb. And that feels different than the other experiences in my stomach. It's about an inability to protect my mother that transfers broadly. My lighthouse for this is a spirit of acceptance, first and foremost, for the past that I cannot control. I want to sit often with this acceptance where it's easy first. And so I'll dwell on ice cream. I enjoy mint chocolate chip ice cream. Right now that even kind of, it's such a juxtaposition because I went to, well, I worked in the shadow deeply without a resource, without light, and was able to do so because at any point I can, recall safety, factors of safety, as I did before I started making this video. I kind of came out of the felt sense of that chaos by noticing the walls, the doors, and then considering how even my neighbors would be saddened if something was happening to me. They wouldn't, they would try to stop something if I was unsafe, as I was a long time ago. And then cautiously I'll begin to notice factors of safety as my lighthouse that I have capacity now that I didn't have then, right? And that I'm further developing that capacity over time with muscle memory, with good habits, with putting myself in the position to have more agency than I did when I didn't have control. And then as I begin to notice back into what that felt like in the womb, there's a very dense energy in the stomach. There's a energy in the throat. I notice pressure on my temples to the side of my head, pressure on my eyes. Here I often begin to breathe out longer so as to expel the energies through my carbon dioxide production. I work less with body movement here because I do not want to overwhelm the sensations associated with the material, because I want to learn more about it for others, which is different than I suggest. As this suffering becomes intense, I notice almost a squeezing on the heart. I can't tell what's going on around me. I feel disoriented, floating, unsupported. I notice a loudness I can't hear anymore, but I have the urge to cover my ears. When we dual attune and try to find the middle way here, I want to find experiences that generally target a sufficient amount of safety for others. A calmness, that grounding that I was missing. So because of the stack, all the different intersections where I feel these energies, I want to keep in mind that I need a stack of lighthouses. I don't want one strong lighthouse that will bring me out of my suffering and leave parts of me suffering. But I want to slowly mend each part. So now that I've really kind of found that suffering and held on to it for a while, I'm going to start to relieve that suffering. In the stomach is where I'll probably start my energies. And in this setting, I'm more meditative. These are slower body movements, still incorporating eye movement, and still sticking with the theme of fostering resilience, but different. Letting the body dictate the pace more as I feel the tensions. Bringing to mind how my loved ones have homes, right? Most of my loved ones, I can say this about every loved one I know, they're living in pretty safe conditions, you know? I noticed as I moved a little higher there, some tension around some people I care about that aren't friends, and how they're in unsafe situations, right? And this will be the pull back to that would confirm and validate what I'm feeling now. So I'm gonna kind of lean away. I'm just gonna acknowledge it, let it float by. And I'm gonna think of simpler things, right? That shows me I'm too progressed in what I was trying to work with. Safety for others isn't something I can really believe right now. Everyone I know, including myself, experiences gravity. Grounding, feeling the earth beneath them. Able to push off and move away if they choose so. And that softened the stomach right there. And there's almost a uncontrollable feeling of relief from that. So I'm gonna work with that more there, right? That ability for us to broadly share in the experience of the earth and grounding. Thinking of friends I swam with today. Thinking of walking this morning and going jogging. The feet hitting the pavement as I jogged on a trail. Grounded, very grounded. Sometimes, and this just I experienced, the breath will be so deep out and so dense, as if you could weigh the breath. And then there will be a subtle pop or something akin to when I crack a knuckle or pop my neck or something. And often it'll be in the region I'm working as I pull and twist the spine. I believe that this is, at this level, the vagus nerve interacting with the body movement. The vagus nerve is dependent on the structures around it, meaning when we move the structures connected to the vagus nerve, we move it in different ways. There's a good amount of relief there, and my stomach does feel different. But I've noticed this has tightened my throat, and the heaviness of my chest seems more profound now. So that tells me two things. Grounding, safety for my friends did nothing for what's on my heart or my throat, or not much. And it tells me the main intensity of my experience over this 30-hour is that was in the stomach. That dense energy in the stomach kind of consumed my awareness. So now I'm going to look at the chest. Often I'll kind of meditative, cultivating the awareness of where I feel it in my body. I notice the sensation of heartbreak. Heartbreak is difficult to work with through grounding. Heartbreak has a grounding to it. It will ground us. It will bring us down. It has a gravity of its own. Feel as if looking around the room, just kind of trying to break my awareness before it pulls me in. Trying to find a lighthouse, my resource, my internal resource to lean on for heartbreak. Often, that's going to be love and belonging. And love and belonging, surely a friend reached out to me, and at a certain point, like them being supportive and loving for me and caring about me broke me down in a way. Okay? This is already starting to happen. As I'm deeply loved by a lot of really amazing people. People I cherish, care a lot about me, And this seems to make it a storm in some way. Probably, the things that come to mind in these states matter, okay? And what just came to mind is maybe that's my fear of being open to love and belonging while I'm dealing with this content. And so that tells me I'm in an avoidant posture. An avoidant posture feels overwhelmed by that connection at certain points. Even in a good way. I don't know, And so with this avoidance, this can use a lighter energy that's easier to accept. Like charity and courage. Charity is the easiest of these two light energies. And so I'm going to think of things I've done for people lately. I took out my neighbor's trash a few days ago. It was sitting on their doorstep in an apartment, I help a lot of people right now But I kind of call into attention yesterday. I used some of the work I created out of a rush, you know, like I created this back a napkin idea, see if it would work, and then kind of looked at it, you know, a little bit more thoroughly, and then I applied it, and it really it helped the person in a big way. And so, also thinking, I went and I fed the fish on the river. Some of my, I had cut some fruit up, and there were scraps from the fruit, and I took the time to walk those down and put those in a spot where I witnessed life enjoying me doing that. And so kind of feeding back to my ecosystem. And I noticed that these bring the right type of levity to the heart. There's healing and charity that is quite beneficial for the heaviest of hearts. Heartbreak is an energy that if we directly oppose it, it can cause a whiplash or a doubt, you know. And usually with most sensations we want direct opposites because those will be the most powerful. But with heartbreak is so powerful, so intense, that we don't want the most powerful. We want a gradual pull away. So charity did a lot there. I'm thinking of many years ago when I began to cultivate charity, I was in emotional cutoff completely avoidant of attachment, constant state of hypervigilance. And, you know, that stayed consistent for a good amount of time, but I remember that my heart softened as I did meta practice in a shelter I was in a life skills program in, where I would feed the homeless as part of my chores, and then when my chores would change, I'd get in there and help out some, or I would do other things, you know, to be involved in helping often. And that allowed me the capacity to open my heart up towards others and believe that others had well wishes for me. Then later even be able to love and be loved. And to find healing through connection with partnership, with deep, intimate friendship, with my family again. Not my abusers, but with other family members, my siblings and I. And this is very important. And so when we're working with the heart, after a little bit of easier, lighter feelings, charity or courage, gratitude is kind of a hit and miss with the heart. It can go other places for, you know. Then we can maybe step into acknowledging what we mean to others, other people's well wishes for us, their love for us, their kindness to us. And now as I kind of remember my friends' text messages earlier, or the kind words of another friend while we were swimming, or my partner's words earlier, she was real supportive. Not even about this this stuff, but she said earlier, I can tell. I'm just gonna listen. You make good decisions, kind of thing, you know. And that was real supportive at that moment. That was like right what I needed. I can think of. I've been really blessed with some great friends. A lot of different friends from a lot of different backgrounds and casts and points of view that genuinely wish me well, genuinely care for me, genuinely have positive regard towards me. Some conditional, some less conditional, some unconditional, right? Some of my friends would really love me just as much if I became a samana and detached from all my worldly possessions and lived by a river or in a field or something, you know. They'd be fine with this. They don't have a need to control me in order to be in relationship with me. They don't need me to fulfill certain expectations, right? They wish the best for me, whatever that best is. And I think that would have really been intense a moment ago, just to say that people feel that way about me, but it is true that that's in my life. And so then let's kind of the harder one a minute ago was how much I might love some of these people, right? That would have really been intense a minute ago, because I'm really seeing more clearly now that this is about, when I have that strong love and I can't control for their safety, right? That's intense. And so what I'm tending to do is pull back and avoid progressing or being open-hearted in those moments, because I can't control those moments. And so there's a lot of naivety in there, isn't there? It's a lot of foolishness. Cowardice, right? And so the courage there is to be open-hearted in that moment and love vulnerably, knowing that it is highly likely to at some point hurt. And so I can think of I got a friend that's all that, and like there's like a lot of kind wishes from my heart, like really hope the best for this person. And then I can kind of think a little bit more broadly, lots of good friends. Lots of good friends. And I have a tendency, gratefully, that I wish the best for these friends, but I don't have a lot at stake in their best, right? I wish the best for them. But if the best turns out to be different than I perceive it now, that doesn't affect my outcome. That doesn't affect my best, right? And that helps me to kind of let go and be less conditional in my love. I think is an important factor. I think of my lover, is like it's a wild, healing love. A lot of oxytocin, a lot of fluffy feelings, warm energy in the heart come with that. And it's weird that there's an ease around the safety, like especially maybe proximity, like if there was a threat to this person at this time right now, like, I really trust myself to handle that threat. I've done that before for her, and it's like, I you know what I mean? It's good to know I'll react like that, but also to know I'm even more ready to do that today, having learned some new stuff since then. Thinking of how sometimes I keep people safe in community that I've never engaged with, Sometimes people will scream for help or something, right? And that's a little bit different of a type of love. And it's not charity. And this, I don't believe it is. I believe it's unconditional positive regard for other living beings, right? And so, looking at how that aspect, that's quite a bit different than the other one, because that hits right on where I was, right? That safety thing. And I can tell that kind of brought me a step back from working with the intensity of these sensations. As we quit moving the body, all we're doing is dual attunement here. Dual attunement links the different aspects of the realities we face in these certain systems. Right now here, the heart. And that, in a sense, somewhat works with the traumatic history by linking the positive from now and resourcing the past with those positive internal resources we didn't have then. We changed the perception of these memories as they arise in the future. I know this because I've worked with all of the content I'm feeling of and speaking of and thinking of right now, and none of it is as intense as it was. These were so intense in sensation and so unknown to me in their origin that they've led to all kinds of behavioral exploits, lots of risk-seeking behaviors that have made me into quite an injured athlete at this point, and were and are part of what makes me what I am, but still quite driven by a need to escape the sensations going on inside my body. And so just kind of keep it in mind that, as I do this, it would behoove me to move my chest a little bit somehow, maybe this way with the eyes. But in this situation, I'm under a lot of pressure here, or was a moment ago, and I know that just cognitively dual attuning is risky. I don't do it. I don't suggest it. Every time I can get someone to move their body, I do, because it's neurochemicals, neurotransmitters, hormones, and fluids that need to be moved out of the cranial nerves and the organs in order for me to really release and let go. Okay? So at chest high, I'm going to put my hands kind of like this, flaring my elbows out towards me, or in front of me. I'm going to take 2 short burst breaths in. Slow exhale and putting my hands behind my head. And just kind of letting it fall out, maybe letting the chest cavity kind of get used to that flaring. Breathing in, breathing out, looking to the left elbow. Thinking about love. Breathing in, looking up. Breathing out, looking to the right elbow and maybe thinking about charity. Breathing in, looking up. Breathing out, looking to the left elbow. Letting the chest open more. Breathing out, looking to the right elbow. Dropping around when we're ready. I notice a lessened intensity. It's like a subtle heaviness, not a good heaviness, not like a comforting, but the residue of whatever I was, whatever that mixture was. And now moving to the throat. Sometimes this is less lengthy of a process as I'm not describing it, but sometimes it is. If I'm taking my time, I have more content than most individuals, so I have more experiences in the domains that I need to work with. And then I work with people that bring and discuss experiences with me, and that kind of renews the amount of work I need to do from time to time. I'll notice, there's almost I had to bring my voice back when I tuned into the throat. It seems to be on like this, like the fronter outer parts. So maybe there's something connected to the jugular. I don't know about that. And then I notice it in like the middle of my throat, in like the middle of my neck. That's probably the sharpest point. And it's a sharpness. Yeah, it's like a sharpness surrounded by heaviness. It's almost a cold feeling. It is. the fear of the loss of attachment. I have an idea that this has something to do with a fear for my mother. It's not a lot there. A lot of times that's kind of one of the hallmarks of really early developmental stuff, is that there's very little cognition surrounding intense sensations. I notice there's a direct connection between this feeling in my throat and the temples. Almost flared up right here. On each side. Yeah. I don't want to speak about what I'm not sure, but there's some pathways that actually fit that in the body, in the fascia, neck. But I digress. With this throat, a lot of times I'll do the and then I'm gonna need to kind of think about some secure attachments. Some attachments where there's not a lot of fear, pressure, anxiety. And some come to mind, partially because I just did this stuff here. And so I kind of think, maybe one of my most secure attachments is my siblings. I got sisters and brothers, 2 biological brothers and sister. Consider these attachments to be like secure because I could call them at any point. I could show up however I am, and that wouldn't jeopardize the attachment. I don't have to change my authenticity or hide my authenticity in order to experience the attachment. There are moments where I've pushed it, and for those moments I've been explained how maybe I was being a way that was uncharacteristic of myself, or was inappropriate for the relationship, or kind of violated a food boundary most often, right? Unfortunately, I will eat people's food if they leave it, for a moment, really. Sometimes, I'm getting better. I've learned from those moments where those friends used their yeses and nos with me, but it didn't threaten the attachment. It's not like the attachment was on the table because the pizza disappeared, right? And so, some of the things that are real life, right? When we get into this secure attachment, I just noticed that those are so strong that the feeling in my throat is dissipating. And that's also a product of working up. Okay, I found in my work with myself, I'll activate from the top down. This is when I'm building resources, right? But when I'm feeling a complex trauma set in multiple domains, I'm going to start at the bottom because that's at the more primitive. And so the cognitions need to evolve, right? We need to kind of go into that basics before we can build up. And so when we're building, we can build, right? But when we're in the middle of these storms, it's important to not push ahead of ourselves. If I'm feeling a lack of confidence or a lack of good enough, noticing how I am good enough or saying to myself that I'm good enough, this may be too far, right? It might be better for me to kind of notice some creativity that I didn't harshly judge of myself. Maybe kind of consider some of the nuanced ways that I show up to good enough, right? Really, really small, simple ones first. I jogged this morning, and I only did that to make life more sufficient, make my life more full, and to live a more good enough life. I might think of the dishes I did a little while ago, but I'm not going to want to get into I'm good enough because I'm trying to save the world, or I'm good enough just for being. That's not smart, right? No big good enoughs yet. We want to kind of ease into that. And then we can say maybe I am good enough simply and effectively and mean it without any of those auxiliary supports. Just knowing that because we exist as living beings, we're good enough. That's good enough right there, right? Our contribution to everything that is built into the system. No matter how we do it, we contribute. We contribute different things, and sometimes unintentionally we can contribute in ways that we wouldn't have wanted to, right? We can if we live unintentionally, we will get an unintentional life, and that is good enough, right? That's enjoyable. Many people don't even you know what I mean, don't even have a value in changing their lives in any serious way or getting control, because the suffering versus the pleasure is so abundant towards the pleasure that they can stay in a mode of almost recognizing all the problems and focusing on those to kind of even that out, right? And so they can complain about scratches on things or different things, and that can kind of even it out for them, give them something, so it's not everything so positive that they can't relate with others, kind of thing. It's not been my problem. I don't do a lot of ungenuine work, and the purpose of this work has been complete because I'm smiling, which is always a big, like, that's why I can often tell I'm relieved in my suffering is all spontaneously a smile. You know, tuning in with the sensations we started with in the stomach. I'm just aware of my stomach as a light energy right now, as well as in the heart and the throat. Kind of the same. Now that I tap in, I'm kind of running. I feel about the same up and down the spine, and that often means I've found a harmony, and harmony is usually when I'm done. You know, harmony I can kind of take with me into the next moment, spend 10 or 20 seconds just recognizing that I'm harmonized, and then I'll usually move on with my day from my unwelcome opportunity.